Hello, everybody, and welcome to this latest edition of the Fireside with Founders and Leaders podcast. This time, I am absolutely delighted to bring you Graham Paterson, who is co-founder of Jitty. He's also leading the product team there. They're a small group at the moment of co-founders who are building a product to revolutionize the home buying experience. So something that I know firsthand from moving house recently definitely needs a shake-up. Graham really gives us a massive insight into some of his experience working at companies like Deliveroo Wise, Deliveroo, Trent, to name but a few, as well as some of his experience around being an advisor and an investor in other businesses too. We talk all about the revolution of AI and how they're incorporating that into some of the products, in some of the market as well as looking at how they can transition their product into the market, taking that helicopter view in product development to ensure that they're really validating that problem space and what Graham does to do that. I really hope you enjoy this one. It was an absolute pleasure recording it. So stick your headphones in, if they're not already in, and check it out. Hello, Graham. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you for having me.
No, thank you for being on. And as we're saying, we're just about have a small amount of daylight for, obviously this isn't going out live, but it's 4 o'clock or past 4 o'clock on a December afternoon. So I think actually the sun's gone down now looking out my window. I've completely lied on that one. But yeah, really nice to have you here. Great to talk a bit more about you, what you're doing with Jitty. But I'd like to start off by just talking about where you've sort of come from. So the journey that you've sort of taken to co-founding Jitty and getting into product itself as a sector and an industry. So can you talk us through a bit more about sort of you and sort of your background, please?
Absolutely. So I guess my background originally was in marketing. After university, joined a very big company to do marketing, realized that marketing only had limited ability to influence the thing to get out there and really give to people. And I found that like product was the thing that the people that were more involved with building things in the way that customers really wanted. So I wanted to get into that. I took some time out of work to teach myself design and development as my first foray into technology. And I realized quite quickly I wasn't going to be great at design or development, not good enough to really do the things I wanted to do. And I started to explore more the product management side of things. So being able to leverage technology and especially like people's skills that were greater than mine in those areas to be able to build things. So I initially started by building a little app. It was called Nightcap. It was a way for people to find pubs and bars that were open around them after closing time, basically. So if you're on a night out in London, you can see what's open around you. And I use that as part of my pitch to TransferWise to say, like, I'm someone who can get stuff done to get my first product management role. So that was my first product management job. Worked there for about a year. And then, moved to Deliveroo some way down the line. And yeah, I can talk about any of that. That's interesting.
Yeah, okay, cool. So and then that now leads us to where you are now with Jitty, right? So I'd love to talk a bit more about what you're doing with Jitty, why you first started Jitty first of all. So tell us a bit more about what sort of conjured up the idea between you and the other co-founders of Jitty.
So I always knew that I wanted to start my own thing. It's always been a big part of, I guess, almost my identity is a frustrated founder. Even when I was an employee, I really wanted that kind of role. And after a couple of years in tech at some very successful places, I kind of flitted between jobs and was trying to find the thing that I really wanted to do, and I couldn't find it. So I decided, now is the time for me to become a founder. And I got a job as a product partner at a VC fund, Connect Ventures, kind of as my way of rounding up my education and how to be a founder. And while I was there, I was on the lookout for the next idea, like on the lookout for what is the thing I want to do. And I was very open-minded. I had literally no idea what kind of sector, what kind of style company I wanted. And just post-COVID, me and my wife moved back to Bath, where I grew up, with our young son. And I found buying a house was just really, really difficult. And I thought it'd be easy because I bought one before, and so I was like, I knew my way through the process a little bit. We had a bit more cash because we'd bought and sold before, and had a couple of IPOs from Deliveroo and TransferWise the year before. And I really thought like this would be more fun, like this time round.
Yeah.
Fun, exciting, like clean slate. And we were living at my parents', so we were like chain free. So I thought this must be
perfect buyer.
Yeah, this must be great. And it was just like terrible. We've like after about a week of excitement, we fell into the kind of monotony of sharing things on WhatsApp. I would share them with my wife. She'd share the same things with me back. We'd lose track. We'd check multiple portals and have to look through every listing every time to try and see what was new. Then booking viewings, doing back and forth phone calls. And some way during that process, I went from just accepting that this is really bad to thinking like, well, hang on, like, does it have to be bad? Is there a way we could do it better? So I created, this sounds really grandiose for what it was, but I created a little prototype of a, almost like a Python bot that would crawl, your Rightmove and Zoopla and On the Market, put all those homes into a new app where me and my wife could swipe left and swipe right on homes that we liked. And anything we liked, it would put into a shortlist for us. And even that really basic, almost game, made the whole process so much more fun. So I realized like there must be a better way to do it. Went to my now co-founders, James and Daniel, and said to them, so James is a designer, fantastic designer. Coops is a brilliant engineer. And I said to them both, like, how would we do this? Like, here's a problem area. Like, what would a good solution look like? So we did lots of user research. We made up some prototypes. And that was really the birth of Jitty. It was called Complete at the time, which is a fantastic name, but also incredibly hard to trademark because it's such a common term. So we eventually changed it to Complete. But that was the birth of Jitty.
Nice, cool. So in terms of Jitty, then as a product, so from it being this this sort of very sort of baseline Python app that you built, where you're swiping left, swiping right, how has it evolved in the like nine months or so, maybe a bit less, bit more, since you've sort of really started the business?
Yeah, so we made the very sensible decision of throwing away everything that I'd kind of messed around with and just taking instead the validation of the problem area as a real thing. And we started by designing this really nice experience of people can filter by anything, see every home on the market, book viewings in the app, stuff like that. So just like started with that as a kind of almost a vision piece of where we wanted to get to. And we quite quickly realized that the reason no one's done that before is that getting supply of homes from estate agents was just really, really hard. So getting their attention is hard, getting them to pay is hard. It's all that's what's prevented really meaningful change in the industry. And so we started exploring and building our own little AI system that indexes estate agents' homes from their own websites. So rather than crawling Rightmove and Zoopla and On the Market, which can lead to just difficulties down the line, we found that by going straight to estate agents' own websites, it was very straightforward for new AI to do in a way that was very hard for AI of the past to do. And secondly, estate agents really wanted us to. There seemed this real appetite for taking their homes and promoting them for free. Like they were exclusively happy with that. So that's how we got to where we are now. And right now we have to launch in the next couple of weeks a native Android and iOS app to showcase people like every home on the market. They can filter by exactly what they want, and they can create this shared favorites list with their friends and family, so that as they go through and like homes, whether they're browsing or buying, they can save them and share notes and little emojis. And our AI is working fantastically at indexing the whole property market as well. So it's that's been the evolution.
Nice. And so in terms of differences then from your product comparatively to the likes of sort of Zoopla or on the market, as you were saying. So obviously for those that don't know, estate agents have to pay to put their products on those sites, and that's how they make their money, as in Zoopla make their money by the paid advertising. So your product is free for those estate agents, and they don't have to even lift a finger because your algorithm does the work. It scrapes it automatically, so they're not even have to manually upload anything onto the platform.
Correct. And some do. Some have chosen to give us data feeds that automatically update, so that their data is like really up to date and just like super accurate. But yes, that's exactly the difference. So for estate agents, we don't charge, and for home buyers or browsers, we have everything in one place, so they don't need to check multiple portals, and we let them tell us exactly what kind of home they want. So I think with some existing portals, I think with all of them, you can't even state like freehold or leasehold, which is such a fundamental part of a home. Whereas with Jitty, you can say, I want a 3-bedroom home. Well, at least 2 of the bedrooms must be double bedrooms. I want an ensuite. I want a downstairs loo. I want a quite a large garden with off-road parking. It doesn't have to be a garage, but off-road parking. And we'll show them every home that matches that. So it really is giving people that like really granular, almost superpower when it comes to seeing homes.
Yeah, nice, cool. I saw a post that you put out the other day. I think it was you that put it out, or someone else that put it out from your team around your Christmas party, where you invited all of the estate agents to come along as a nice bit of sort of PR to get them through the door and really get them excited about the product. So I thought that was a pretty cool bit of guerrilla marketing and inspirational idea.
Yeah, it was. The genius idea of free booze was.
Everyone loves free booze, right? It's fine.
It was. We named cocktails after puns with the word Jitty in them, and it was a really great way just to showcase and get ourselves in front of a stage and to say, this is what we're doing, this is how we're doing it, and it gave them an opportunity to kind of grill us and be like, how are you doing this? How are you approaching that? And it was a super powerful way to kind of kick off our relationship with lots of new folks, which was fun.
Nice. And so we mentioned earlier in terms of your journey into product, so really cutting your teeth at Wise and then working at Deliveroo. So unless people who are listening to this have been living under a rock, they'll know both of those companies. So how do you think that your experience, or how has your experience in those companies, should I say, shaped your journey to where you are now, and what inspiration have you taken from the things you've learned there?
Yeah, good question. So there's a few things that really stand out. I think one is seeing how to build digital products the quote unquote right way has been super useful. When you're working at those kind of companies, you ship stuff very, very quickly. You talk to customers a lot, and I can see how, we can see how that translates into building a great product that people really, really want and care about. Also, just being able to pick up loads of really talented friends along the way has been incredible. So our whole team worked together at Deliveroo, and the bench of people that I can go to ask for advice is just like so high quality because of my time at those companies. So that was also a very, very helpful way to start the entrepreneurial journey, is with a group of people that I really know and trust. I think one of the final ones is like just knowing that normal people can make a real impact on huge industries. I do think a lot of the reason that alumni of very successful companies go on to start their own companies afterwards is because they say, hey, these like phenomenally hardworking and smart people, but they are just fundamentally like normal human beings,
Yeah.
can do this thing that is really, really, really insane. Why can't I do that as well? So I think just like normalizing the ability to have that much of an impact and seeing that, it's not like savants doing something. It's just like normal people, if they make good decisions and work hard, can have this crazy impact and do loads of good. I think that was a big motivator for me as well, and one of the biggest things I take away from those companies for sure.
I think it's so right. I've actually never really thought about it like that, but you do see a lot of people coming out of, say, companies like Deliveroo, Monzo, whatever they might be, and they go and start their own things, and it's not just because they've seen what it takes to sort of do that sort of role, but they can normalize the people at the top because they see them every day and go, "You're just a human."
Yeah, it's exactly that, and also, when you work at those companies, you see that the pace at which you do things means things go wrong a lot of the time. And so your appetite for getting stuff wrong is just like surprisingly high. You're like, totally fine. You try that, it doesn't work. Okay, throw that out, try something else. And like, it's really useful to know that that's what the path to success looks like, is getting a lot of stuff wrong along the way. And it just means that you can keep going and you can forgive yourself for making mistakes, which I think is a big part of any founder's journey. And so it's useful to have smart people around you that have been through similar paths.
And I think that's, for me, sort of defines someone with an entrepreneurial mindset is someone who's not necessarily afraid of the failure, right? Because there's people who are perfectly capable people. In fact, some of the most capable people working within businesses, and they're the ones that are driving it. But they're not necessarily people that I would say are entrepreneurial in their mindset, because they don't like the risk. They don't like necessarily the sort of the fear of failing. They're very happy doing what they're doing, and they're doing it to a very good standard. So is that something that you've sort of taken from being in those environments, of being sort of open to that risk versus reward factor?
Yeah, it definitely has. And I think it also, like, it just increases your exposure to what actually happens when things go wrong. And a lot of the time you realize, if you ship a feature and people don't like it, or you put a campaign out and no one cares, it's not actually that bad. Like, there's not that much that really goes wrong. And it just changes your understanding of the risk reward profile that makes you, I think, more willing to take those risks. And someone once explained to me, like, I can't remember the exact wording, but it was something along the lines of, most founders are like just bad employees. And that's definitely my thing, is like, I like to think I performed roles pretty well and added value, but I definitely was always that frustrated founder who just wanted to get involved with marketing, and, hey, tell me what you're doing here and why, and recruiting, how are you enacting this policy. And I think that that appetite for responsibility as well is, I think, part of what drove me to be a fan, and lots of other people as well.
Nice. And I think that's part of, like, a product person though as well, in the mindset of someone who's in product. You want to be across many things, many departments. Part of your role, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is unifying some of these departments, right? So having that helicopter view, if you like, is part of your DNA.
Yeah, it's very true. It's because obviously you're to different levels of responsibility, but taking ownership for the design and technical and user research and other parts of a product team, but also the go-to-market, and making sure it's got the thumbs up from legal and financial and whoever else. So there definitely is that. I think helicopter, like you say, helicopter view is definitely a part of a product person's DNA. I think what makes good product people and good founders hopefully cross over on the Venn diagram.
And you've obviously, in your time before Jitty, worked in leadership roles ultimately in some of the companies you've worked in. So I wanted to touch upon some of your leadership experience. Obviously you're acting as a leader now, but a leader of the business rather than of people. You've obviously got most people have a way of working when they're working as a leader in some form or capacity. So what's your general sort of philosophy in terms of how to get the best out of people, how to be a good leader?
I think for me it's very much a case of how of working out how I can hire the smartest people that we can possibly work with, and then how I can get out of their way. Just how we can set very clear goals and missions to make sure everyone's hauling in the same direction, have the right amount of process. But just generally speaking, I see my job as a leader, and when I was a manager, I said as well, of helping people to get stuff done and getting out of their way to let them do the things they're really, really good at. So rather than pointing out things people are struggling with or focusing on that too much, is rather helping them to play to their strengths, I think is always the way that I've tried to be a leader and a manager.
Yeah, it's easier said than done for some people, and I think it's definitely something that I personally agree with. I'm a big believer of giving people the tools that they need to do the job, and then literally, as you say, just getting the hell out of their way. I said to the guys here, we've got them like, what do you need, and then I'll get that for you, and I'm going to get out of your way and let you do your job, because that's what you're here to do.
Yeah, exactly that. And it's always a balancing act, because on the one hand, that style is exactly how I have been and want to be managed, is by people just giving me the ability to do things and saying, go do it and come to me when there's a problem. But I know for me, I need to make sure I balance that right and don't accidentally be the sort of manager I want to be rather than what people need. So I think that's always the challenge as well, is getting the balance there right. But luckily we're small as a team right now, so we get together a lot, very frequently, and can talk about stuff, and it's very easy for us to be aligned in terms of what we're doing.
Nice. And you've obviously you sort of had your time in terms of investing. So I wanted to sort of flip the conversation slightly, if you will indulge me. So you've been an angel investor, and you still currently are an angel investor in some things.
Yeah, I don't actively invest right now, just because all of my focus is on getting Jitty off the ground. But I was at a VC fund for about 18 months, and part of a few different angel investing syndicates.
Nice. So one of the things that I always get asked by people when they're coming on, especially from founders, is a lot of the time people are looking for investment. They're trying to make their way. So what are people looking for? And I know it's super subjective because everyone's looking for something different. But what do you generally look for when you're looking to give some investment in a business? What sort of metrics are you working to?
It's a good question. I think for me, there's two basic things that I see as both non-negotiables, in terms of if they're not there, I can't get my head around the thing. And if they are there, they need to be very, very powerful. One is is this a burning problem? Is it a thing that people say a hair on fire problem, or is it a painkiller rather than a vitamin? Is it a real thing? But for me, it's do I intuitively understand and get that this is a problem? And then second is, do I believe that the team is capable of building a thing to solve that problem? And there's 10,000 nuances. You can look at it in loads of different ways, but to me, it just comes down to kind of those two big questions. If the answer is yes, then it's very, very hard for me to ignore a thing. And as well as investing, it's the same when you're choosing jobs, right? It should be the same as when you're choosing jobs, or if you're a founder choosing a problem to work on. It's to say, one is, how can you get maximum conviction that the problem is real? And there's, a bunch of different ways you can do that. And the second is, how can you get conviction that the people working on it have the right skill set and ability to solve that problem? I think if those two things line up, then so much else can be forgiven or can be worked through and whatever else. So those are the things I look for.
Nice. So just saying that, you're saying something that's caught my attention. So you're talking about finding out if the problem's real, right? So you've obviously you've found the problem with Jitty, and you've not just built the business on your hunch and you and your wife's problem. You've obviously validated it. So what have you done to validate the problem space that you're in now?
So at first it was sending out a survey to people that had bought homes recently to ask them about their pain points, ask them how they did it, just to see like, is this even worth spending any more time on? And it came back quite resoundingly with like, it's a thing that everyone hates. Like no one enjoys buying a home, moving house. And then it was a case of lots and lots of conversations with people, people actively buying, people that recently bought, people that just browse, just myself and my co-founders together and separately, just really building out our intuition. And it is hard to balance getting that information objectively so that you can say, is this worth us pursuing or not? And then at some point you kind of fall in love and you're like, okay, fine, I really want this to be true. And then in your future conversations, making sure that you're not just trying to hear what you want to hear because you've already decided you want to build something here.
So how do you do that then? So how do you sort of stop yourself from just going full speed ahead, just hearing what you want to hear, as you say?
I think like awareness that there's a mindset switch, and that at some point you fall in love with a problem or the idea of building a company is very useful. Just being aware and being mindful. Having objective measures that you set out beforehand as well is super, super helpful. So saying like, we want to speak to this many people and I want to be clear that these are problems they have and that they are, solving them in certain ways. So a big one for us was saying, well, like what lengths do people go to solve the problems that we think exist? And sometimes we found there's really big lengths that people have been to, like the massive spreadsheets people make of all the different properties they could have. That made us go, cool, there's a problem here. Whereas if people were like, nah, just don't really do anything, then you're like, okay, cool, maybe no one has this problem. But because we saw so many people go to such great lengths to address this problem, that's what made us build our conviction. And with estate agents, a big part of it was asking them with no context, saying, what's your number one pain point? And when they all say portal fees and how much they're charging us, emotionally and financially is number one pain point, that makes us go, okay, cool. That's nice. Good signal.
Yeah. I think is it on the market that's owned by Savills and something? They built it because of the fact they didn't like the fact that Zoopla was charging them so many fees. So a few of them got together and built their own platform. I can't remember which one it was.
I think it's currently going through an acquisition by a big American company. There's basically been various attempts at like unseating the main portals, but they've all been unsuccessful so far at really changing the market. So that's what we want to come in and do, is with a completely new approach. But yeah, and those multiple attempts at solving in the past were also part of our vindication of our validation of realizing there is something here, because estate agents and others keep going off the problem. Like there must be a good prize at the end of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of evolution of technology, so you talked a bit about the fact that you guys are using AI to go out and ensure you're getting the right data, right information in. There's been lots of technological advancements over the last 10 years or so, and in the time since some of the other portals have come out, there's been huge advancements in technology. So what sort of innovation are you seeing in the sector and the industry as a whole, and what are you being able to put to good use in the product?
So yeah, there's loads of cool stuff. PropTech is a really thriving part of like the technology scene. I think the biggest thing for us is that we can now use AI in a way that was previously impossible, to index every home in the market in a very, very deep way. So AI has always been good at doing very, very structured tasks. So if you give it, some stats about a football team, it can predict the winner. And if you give it some stats about a thing, it can make a prediction. But it's been very bad at very unstructured tasks. So taking human language and inferring intent and meaning and understanding it. And, as we all saw with the the rise of ChatGPT and large language models in general, AI's ability to take unstructured data and perform really complex tasks on that is kind of new and kind of amazing. So that's what we've been using to understand every home and do cross-referencing on it. So if we can find every home on the market, that's kind of straightforward. Google's been able to crawl for however long, right? And every search engine can do lots of crawling. But we can now use large language models and AI to turn those home adverts into structured data. So how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, is it for sale, is it not? As well as understanding things like, where's the sentence where they talk about off-road parking? What do they say in there? And getting an AI to do that is now very straightforward, whereas before it was extremely difficult.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the biggest one for us, is the fact that this very, very, very fragmented market is now possible to be consolidated, and that's true like globally. We think that's an incredibly cool opportunity, and I think the same thing's going to happen in other parts of complex decisions like buying a car, going on holiday. It's all those really, really complex decisions like where should I go to school will soon be able to be made in really structured ways, which is going to signal a lot of change, I think.
It's quite exciting, isn't it? I'm really looking forward to seeing what some of this stuff can really do for us as an enabler. I'm not one of those people who's thinking it's going to come and be the end of the human race and it's going to take all of our jobs. I think it's definitely there as an enabler moving forwards. So I appreciate you've only just recently launched Jitty, so the future is the now to that extent. But what does the future look like? What's your vision for the company, and where do you see yourselves going?
So practically speaking, we want to be, I think eventually we want to be in most countries. We want to be available there. Using technology to scale geographically is incredibly cheap and relatively straightforward compared to having boots on the ground. We want to help people with rentals as well as buying. We want to help people like browse and live out their dream fantasies of what happens if I won 20 million pounds in the lottery, where in the world could I live? We want to help people with that. I think it even goes further in towards like lifestyle inspiration. If I want to redo my kitchen and I say I want open plan, high spec, here's some details, and it can show me inspiration based on what's available on the market. Like that is a really, really powerful thing that is currently not possible. So things like that are where we want to take it to really being like a lifestyle go-to destination.
Nice. Well, I look forward to seeing more of that as you develop it over the years. So one thing I've been asking everyone over the course of this season at the end of the show is just a bit of sort of words of wisdom, if you will, around things that if they could have looked back on their time, their career, things that they've learned that they not necessarily would do differently, but things that they can give as a bit of advice to anyone who's perhaps coming up in the product world, and maybe someone who's looking at a similar trajectory to you. They might be there thinking about starting their own business. What advice would you give yourself if you were to go back to your time at Wise to say how you can get to where you are now?
Yeah, I think a couple of things that jump out are, one is something that was very helpful was taking the time to make friends and help people. Building out that network of people far more talented than me has been just very useful, but also emotionally helpful to have a group of people to lean on. I probably would advise myself genuinely to relax a little bit more. I'm quite an impatient guy. I've wanted to get to where I am as quickly as possible, and I see people taking their time more in their careers, and I'm extremely jealous of that because I didn't really give myself the time to savor things and like truly enjoy them. And I think one of the last ones that's really helped me is, one of the things I've learned is to really understand really take the time to understand the problems I'm working on. I early in my career would try to tackle very complex problems and not spend enough time really getting to the nitty-gritty of those problems. And it just meant that the things I built didn't work or weren't elegant or failed in some way. And over time, I've learned that just taking the time to pick the problems you work on wisely and then really, really understand them deeply means that your odds of success in them are far, far higher. So those are the things that that really, jump out at me.
Nice. I think those words of wisdom, especially about time, they could apply to most things and most people. I think, especially in the modern world that we live in, where we want everything now and instantly, that instant gratification, and it certainly doesn't always work out like that.
Yeah, and it also makes me feel like an old man. I think it's the first time I've ever said, like, if I look back, I think I'd advise myself to take it slow. But I do. The reason I say it is because I do see people who just take a few more years in each role or each level or whatever, and I think the stuff that you can learn in that time is so invaluable. And having moved relatively fast in my career in different ways, it's been something I've missed out on.
Perfect. Well, look, Graham, thank you so much for coming on and sharing everything today. I'm really looking forward to sort of following your journey with Jitty and seeing as you go global and then really build out a product that can be that lifestyle product as well as just for finding a home, which is such an important decision for so many people.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for the time.